All right, we're back for another episode. Is this episode 4, 5?
I don't know. It's
I don't
so much
remember
fun.
either.
It's hard to keep track.
All right, well, it's either episode 4 or 5. So in this episode, what we're going to do is just let you play around with stuff. So this is pre-fin suite learning, just so we didn't add too many layers on. So we're going to open up the designer on your screen. And yeah, no pressure. You can just kind of go through, pull stuff on screen, add some styles, ask questions, and we'll go from there.
Can I break anything? Is it possible to do any
I
damage?
guess we'll find out. All right, so if you want to just delete everything on screen or you can leave it, I'd probably just delete it all so you have a fresh canvas. So
All
just
right.
touch stuff and then
So
hit delete.
let's see. All right. So I do have control of the mouse. So that I guess is the first question and the keyboard here. So let's see. All right. I am deleting stuff. Okay. So are we the body we leave, right? That's here to stay.
That is permanent.
Um,
Yep.
that is here to stay. Okay, so
No
I'm
pressure.
gonna,
Just kind of start doing whatever you want. And
yeah. So my first thing I remember from my notes with Command E, I think brings up the shortcut tab, and I think I want to bring in a div block, and that brings up our first div block, and I'm pretty sure that, you know what, I'm just gonna play around here and bring in another one just for fun. And then since they're next to each other and they're on the same level, that makes them siblings, right?
yep.
Until I do something with them. And all right. So, all right. Now, I haven't learned the Fin Suite um, naming
Naming.
convention yet. But I do know that the first thing that we're going to call this one is we're going to call it the page wrapper. I remember that from my notes.
You certainly
So
can.
I
I
should,
mean, you also don't need to build a page. You can just start going into the elements panel, grabbing stuff, pulling it on. But you can follow a structure. I mean, the reins are yours, but don't feel obligated to try to
so
repeat
we're
or.
gonna try to remember a few things just for
Okay.
fun.
All right.
So let's see if I even remember how to name something. So um, existing classes. See, oh, page wrapper. All right. So we're gonna see if we'll see later if I did that right. Um, and then it's interesting. So I don't remember the placing of the name. This is interesting. All right. Now the other thing I know that we definitely want to bring in um, is a nav bar. So we do want to bring in a navigation bar at some point in time because that would be helpful. So that's inside this one. So that's cool. Um, interesting. So let's just bring in some elements. Another div block. I want to move that inside. That's what's in here. Interesting. In our brand. Huh. A little wheel, a little settings thing for our brand. Don't remember
So
hearing about that.
So the brand element currently is pretty much a link block. So that way when you put your logo in it and you click it, it brings it back. So the settings tab, which you can click on it if you want,
Okay.
opens up. So if you click that little,
Click the gear. All right, I
there's
did
no,
click it.
there's nothing happening. Oh,
No,
try going over to
no.
this next to the style panel. Click the settings.
Um, over here,
Yep, yep, yep.
the element settings. Okay.
So maybe you have to have, so you see the link setting options in there. This is where you could add links and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So
Okay. Interesting. All right. And then, okay, so then here we have our home. Oh, all right. So here I could add the home URL, and then here's my about URL.
So those buttons right there, yep. So that button, if you go back one, that allows you to select which page it would link it to. So you can directly link it to a page. The first
Okay.
one allows you go to just a random URL.
Okay.
And then is the third one the anchor one? I think. Yes. So that is the anchor section. So right now, if you give
Oh,
one of your divs an anchor thing, if you remember how to do that,
yeah.
so if you go and do
Okay.
that, it'll then pop up under the anchor setting.
Okay. All right. And then a mail to. All right. A mail to with the subject. All right. And then okay, phone. All right. That's good.
So the menu button currently does not display. So if you see right there in the settings, you could set which breakpoint the menu button would appear. So in your middle, on the middle right, you see all the different icons that match your top bar. Middle, down. Sorry, where you were, just go down.
with
Up, yeah,
my mouse.
yeah. So if you slide that left one, it would then appear on this breakpoint. That's right, left, left, other way. There you go. So that is just deciding where you'd want your burger menu displaying from.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right.
So
Tracking.
it's hidden. Otherwise, the element goes hidden on the desktop setting.
There you go. All right. Tracking with you now. Let's say I want to get rid of this white div block that's here. Why is that? That is actually I should just. So that's part of this page wrapper. So I need to like just indent this whole thing inside the page wrapper. Is that part of the problem that this isn't inside the page wrapper?
There you go. Yep.
So that wasn't inside of it. Aha. All right. So that's why there was space on top of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And so right now, when you don't, so this div block that you've got right underneath your navigation, it's
yeah.
showing it as it's some type of height. If you were to go view this on a browser, there would have been no space above it or below your navigator. That's just Webflow giving it some some height just so you can click on it easier. But right now it has zero height. So had you
Okay.
gone to
Yeah.
preview mode, it wouldn't have been there. But yeah, it's just for so you can find it and see it right now on screen.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I'd
All
be
right.
curious if you could. I'm curious. I'll give you a little challenge while we're
Oh,
here. Is if you
all
can
right.
figure out how to center those buttons on the right, the home and about and contact, so they're at the
Yeah.
same. They're centered with the Nessie image.
Okay. So they're centered top to bottom.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Oh, all right. Interesting. Okay. So my guess, and I'm gonna talk myself through it. You don't have to answer right away. I'm just gonna talk myself through it.
Okay.
My guess would be to make this top box a flex box and then um, realign it. But so I'm gonna try that. So I'm gonna make this container. Can I make this container a flex box? Let's see. I don't need tutorial. Hey, there's tutorial on a flex box. Here's the word flex box. Let's see what we can do. Flex box. Hey, that moved some stuff around. Hey, it's centered, but now it's way over here. We don't like that. Um, no, I don't like that either. We only want. I don't. I don't want these over here. We still want them over here the way it should have been. So what we probably want to do is we want to add. Do we want to add another div block?
Well, actually, so you were pretty close on track. If you just keep looking at the settings you were playing around with.
Okay. Ooh, interesting. Oh, split it. No. Oh,
So that is the correct answer. So there's an interesting thing with Flexbox, and it's auto spread. So there's two ways to do it. If you now grab the nav menu,
all right. The nav. Okay.
all right. So now on the I can't remember. I think it's margin on the left margin side. Click the zero,
Uh, where am I at?
the left margin side.
Left
Yep,
margin.
click that.
Okay. Click and hold.
No, just click it
Okay.
and click auto.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
So it is telling it. So right now they're not really sure how much size they're supposed to take up. So that auto margin is telling it to put as much margin on the left side that it will take up. So that margin auto. So sometimes when you're building like a card with like employees, so you start with their photo and they've got a little bio, and on the very bottom it says contact. So if you had people's bios, one was two lines and one was 4 lines, the button would not stay level on the bottom. So what you do is you turn the whole thing into a flex box, and on the button you click auto, and it'll automatically push the button to the very bottom so that everything looks consistent all the way through. So when you're using Flexbox, keep in mind that that auto comes in really handy. It's always worth trying that for your spacing stuff. But very
Nice.
good, yeah, you got that
Yeah.
turned out really well.
All
So
right.
one more challenge now. It
All
would be
right.
interesting to see you add spacing to the nav area so that the Nessie image is not all the way at the top of the website.
Okay. All right. All right. So the gray area is and there's additional gray area above the Nessie image, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think we can manage that. So I think I would just want some additional padding. That should be pretty simple. But then I think we would want some additional padding at the bottom of this as well, because that would look kind of ugly if it wasn't.
So if you hit the either the Shift or the Alt or Command key, I think maybe the Alt key while you're dragging it,
Okay. Oh,
it will do both of them. So there's one of the settings you can try where it does both.
okay.
Will
Yeah.
do.
Yep.
I think there you go.
Okay.
All right. So
Nice.
one other thing, we're going to get a little picky here, even though we didn't fully learn it, but we will always want to use rems, not pixels. So if you
Okay.
click now one of those,
Yep.
you can do two things. You can either go over to the rem thing and click rem, and now it's going to be crazy because it's still taking the previous value. So you can now
Number. Yep.
so now you can change it to whatever you'd want, and then
Yep.
you have to re-grab that nav.
All right.
You'll have to re-grab the navigator. It got selected off the element.
Oh. Yeah.
And then you'll want to change the bottom one also. So you can now hit, you don't have to
Oh.
go in now, you can hit the command option on the top one, and it'll automatically adjust the bottom one to that rem.
Oh. Nav Bar. Oh.
Somehow you just
Somehow.
reset it.
All right. So we want to go to 2 rem.
Somehow you keep selecting off the element. So you can just hit enter. You don't have to click anywhere. It's like, now let's adjust the bottom one. Just type in 2rem on the bottom one. I just want to make sure you're not clicking off the element like you just did again. So after you type in it, yeah, just hit 2rem and enter.
Enter does nothing for me.
It should.
I'm hitting enter. I hit tab. I can tab through them.
Well, are you clicked in? Are you actually clicked on that? Click, there you go. Now hit enter. Okay, well, that should work. But anyway, then I don't know what that's weird. Was it in 2rem? Did you type in type in 2rem? Type in rem, REM, and then hit enter. There you go. I think we just weren't adjusting the value, and so the enter
Okay.
didn't signify a change.
Okay. All right. Is there a place to do a default REM setting just in like in a preferences where it just says site wide we want to do everything in REM?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So anything where so for example, the only place in the entire website where you will not use rems is if you are giving something a 1 pixel border. There are some areas where you can't add rem, but every other element, whether it's spacing, margin, padding, whatever, image size, anytime you can do it in rem, we'll want to do it in rem.
Yeah. Okay.
Even typography size, we'll start doing in rems.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. I like it.
So it'd be interesting to toggle through your different breakpoints and see what it looks like. If you remember the
All right.
keys for that.
It was something 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it shift 1, 2, 3, 4? Nope. Uh, huh. All right.
Let me know if you want a hint.
I think I'm gonna need a hint. I remember it was 1, 2, 3, 4,
That was it.
but
Yep.
it was just 1, 2, 3, 4. Overthinking it.
All right. So
Okay,
you'll
so
notice. Let's go
one.
drop down one breakpoint. So you'll notice now it's really ugly. Somehow you don't want those items in so thin. So we should click on it and find out what's going on. Why is it showing it like it is? So an interesting thing we did not talk about before. If you click the pixel value where it shows 763 pixels at 100%, you
Yep.
can now click that bottom button, X-ray mode, toggle that on.
Okay.
And what it will do, it'll now, if you now click, you can click off and now click, just hover your mouse over where you're at. It'll show you where padding and margin have been applied. So if you just hover around the board, you'll see, oh, there's spacing there. So we don't have any. So if you hover over Nessie, you'll see there's nothing, or go right onto just the nav bar. You'll see there's no internal spacing, but somehow things are really weird. So it could be our flexbox setting. It could also be that we did not change out webflow's basic container. That could also be an issue. So you can now turn X-ray mode off. Sometimes that's just a little trick to see if there's anything. Just have to re-click on that menu and unselect it. So let's see the settings. So let's click on the nav and see what's going on with Flexbox. So you'll just need to scroll all the way up to the settings.
Where are you wanting to go?
In your styles, you'll just need to scroll up. You're not all the way up in your style panel.
Over
Is it all
here.
the way up?
Oh,
Yeah. Is it all the way up?
yes.
Okay, so it is. Wait, are you in the nav bar or the inner container? Sorry, let's go to the inner container. All right, so it is saying Flexbox. So oh, I think I actually know what's wrong here. So, okay. Let me see if you can figure it out, or
So what is it we're trying to achieve is the fact that
so
the
we want them
Bergman.
pushed out. Yeah, like because right now, if you look, they're very narrow, and you'd normally find a logo on the top left and the burger menu on the top right. So
Okay. All right. Um,
so it is the same step that we applied on desktop, but just it's now a different
so,
element, so it's not applied on here.
so we have our, let's see, that's just our margin. So did we not end up with that auto? That boom.
So you're on the right track. It is that auto margin. So now you just need to think about what element should you be applying the auto margin to.
So that
What did
should
we do
be
that's different than desktop?
we have this burger menu instead of the full menu.
Yep.
So that would definitely be different.
So make sure, look what element you're on. So what element are you on right now, and what's its parent element? So if you start making a change to the icon because it's inside of the menu button, it will only make changes relative to its parent element. So you'll have to go up a layer and make changes to its parent element, since that's in the same sibling bracket as what we're trying to do.
Meaning, so the nav menu.
Nope, because that's hidden. That was on the desktop. So you need to go to the menu button. Yep. Because if you look at the icon, is inside that.
Gotcha. So we need to make changes here.
There we go.
All right. So in this particular case, we have enough room that on the tablet view, we wouldn't have to go down to the burger menu. So could we make the decision here to display the full menu?
So there's several questions, or I guess several things you want to consider. Number one, how many menu buttons that will you have? So right now we have 3. Most sites we try to, 5 is probably the maximum. The one thing you'll want to do is go into the preview mode, or maybe even I think you can scroll right now, is what's the smallest screen size on tablet. So grab that little slider right there and shrink it all the way down or all the way up and see what size is. All right, so that is the smallest tablet right there. So as long as it will look good on the smallest tablet. So to do that, you would go into the navigator, the nav bar element, and we'll go to the settings panel. And then you could just drop it down one.
On the scroll bar?
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, even if we had two more links, I think that would still look okay.
Yeah, so as long as, oh, go ahead.
Common? Is that common for tablet users? Would that be a standard practice? Do you know?
You know, I have seen some websites with it. I actually would say we are seeing a trend shift to even using the menu buttons on desktop websites. A lot of people have very complex or very decorative hero sections, and they actually don't like any menu buttons at all. And so just the burger menu. So could you? Yes, if that is a choice you're consciously making. But on the flip side, you could also go in the reverse and say, you know what, we're going to hide all of our tabs even on the desktop. So that kind of goes back to how many pages you have and what is your consumer looking for. If you want to tell a story just on your homepage, if it's a one-page site, it is really simple just to go to a burger menu. But if you've got 4 groups of customers coming to your website and they're looking for very specific things, it is nice to have those all tabbed out. So
okay, all right, interesting. Okay, good.
all right, so we played around with Flexbox. I'd be curious if you just want to go and design. Oh, so actually another interesting thing that we could actually talk about while you're go back to the let's go with landscape. So on when you're dealing with burger menu buttons, you actually don't want them centered to the content. So let's see if you can figure out how to take that back to the top right in your mobile views.
We're going back up here.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So our alignment and our spacing was let's see, where was our spacing? Positioning. Position relative. I don't think this is quite where I want to be, but
I think you might be struggling because you got to pay attention to what
what I
element
have
you have
selected.
selected. Yep.
Right. So
So
I'm going to go
always start with, so if you'll notice when you click this menu button, if you look at the very bottom of your screen, there's actually like a little glossary telling you what are all the parent elements. So if you look all the way right, it'll now, you can track it all the way back to its parent element.
yeah.
And so when you're trying to make changes to an item, always start with the lowest in that track and slowly build your way back up. So you look at the menu button and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
is there top, do I have a margin applied to the menu button? So we can look at it and be like, no, all right, let's go up to the next item. And you just slowly work your way up.
Right. So then in this case, I can simply change the alignment and solve
There
that
we go.
problem with one click.
Yep. And let's say you were going to be really picky. How would you, so you'll notice there's a little padding still. It's not quite level. How would you adjust that? Be curious how you can come up with that.
Okay, so you're talking about like this little space here.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So can I do negative padding? No. Can I do negative margin? Um, is that a clean way to do it?
And I was just talking
Um,
about leveling it to the top of the Nessie image, not necessarily all the way up to the top of the page. So if you Command Z, you can undo, click Command Z. You'll just notice it's not completely parallel with the Nessie.
all right, so that's probably not necessarily a clean way to do it.
So let's undo that. So the question is,
Um,
let's look at its parent element. Where is this padding, this spacing coming from that you're trying to remove?
all right, so this is coming from um, so this menu button is sitting inside. Oh, this has a bunch of padding. So where did this padding come from? So we can just remove this padding. Down to 0.
So that is one way to do it. The other way you were almost going to do it was similar. So the reason why there's padding is right now that menu button, that space is what is giving us the space for how someone's going to click it. So that padding makes it easier for someone to press with either their mouse or their thumb on that square. So removing the padding just makes it harder if they're clicking the top. That is one way to do it. The second is the amount of padding that was set, you could have gone and set that as a negative margin. So you still would have
Okay,
had the
so
same size
-8.
square, but it would have
Yeah.
just drug it up.
Okay. So I could have done a -18 margin.
Yep,
Square would have still existed.
yep. But
Okay.
there's so many ways to do things, and obviously, when you first begin, as long as you can solve the puzzle, that's really what you're looking for. And obviously, as you go on, you'll learn other ways and paths to solve the puzzles, and that's where you can get cleaner builds. But that just comes with time and practice.
Yeah.
All right, so it's looking like a decent um, setup so far. Obviously, if we change the background of the navigator to white, it would probably look a little cleaner.
All right. So we click on our nav bar. Then we want to go to backgrounds. Can we just delete this color?
So you can also click right on the color icon.
Okay. Oh, and then we can probably just drag this right up to white.
All right, so I'm going to pause you right here, and this is a perfect learning opportunity. So you are on what breakpoint?
I should have been on the nav bar.
Sorry, what
Oh,
breakpoint?
I'm on the landscape.
Interesting.
Ooh,
So as we know with cascading styles, what's going to happen? There we go. Yep.
yeah, that's just down. So I want to be on the desktop.
There we go.
All
Yep.
right. So the other thing is, do I at any point in time do I want to? I don't want to necessarily apply anything because this is just a simple background color change. I don't need to. Will I want to be thinking about naming in for future? Will this
So
apply?
that's a really good question. So if you had, so there's two scenarios. So scenario one is if, let's say, you had many nav bar pages. So let's say on half of the pages it was a dark nav bar, on the other half it was a light nav bar. So therefore you might want to create a combo class. So you have your base nav bar settings where it would give the size, the spacing, and you might want to create a combo class that would be white or black as a combo class to the nav bar. For a regular section, you would 100% need to make a custom class, because if you've got, so navbar right now is a is a, a is a custom class because you're only using it in the navbar.
Right.
So if you were going to do navbar dark, navbar light, instead of making two navbar classes, you could do two combo classes, navbar dark, navbar light. But for
Okay.
sections, you would either have a custom class or a combo class. And we prefer to use a custom class so that way we don't run into too many combo classes.
Okay. Be let's see. So is dragging these in, is this a kosher way to do it? I don't know if wasn't watching you drag these in necessarily.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. The other way is to do the Command E.
So I'm doing, oh, I guess I've been doing Command E, typing it, and then hitting enter, and then I don't know if I've still been dragging it in.
So if you have the element, so let's say you wanted something inside of the element, as long as you have that element selected, it'll drop it inside that element.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
So are you ready for a next little challenge while we're sitting here? I was just thinking of
Yeah.
something interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Do it.
So we should do so here's what we want to end up with. We want to end up with a heading. I like your heading. End up with a
Uh-huh.
paragraph underneath it on the left side
Yeah.
of the screen. And on the right, we want to add one of the other Nessie images. So it's kind of like a
Okay.
cool,
All
our cool head.
right. All right. Okay. So let's do a little grid. And so you said there's going to be a heading and some paragraph, and then an image on the right.
Yep.
So on the left there'll be a heading and text, and
Yep.
then an image on the right. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So then over here, I don't know how I'm editing. I don't remember how I'm editing this grid.
So you
How
got a
do I
lot of
add
settings on the
something?
right.
So how do I add? Do I just add something here to the grid? Does that just go in the grid?
Yep, that's one way to do it. Otherwise, you can also drag the items from your desktop into it.
Okay. All right. Wow, I just really got lost about what happened here. So how do I get this paragraph text into grid 1 on the left here?
So the one issue with grid is it will only accept one element per slot.
Oh,
So you got to remember
so is
how
there
to overcome that
a
puzzle.
effect? is there a flex? Can I create, can I turn this grid into a flex box? Can I insert a div, a flex box into a grid? I think I can do that. So I need to probably take this heading out. And what I need to do is, let's take this out. Did I just delete the grid? I did. That's okay. I can do that. So I can insert a grid. And what I can do is I can insert.
So you undo that button. Undo that. Okay. I click done. So just click done for now.
Done. Okay.
Yep.
Done.
And then now you can do stuff.
Okay. So insert a flex box.
So from the search thing, so if you'll remember, we want to always add divs. We only add divs. So even when you added a grid element, we would just add a div and give it a grid setting. We don't add a grid.
Oh. Okay. So we are element. That's right. So we're inserting a div block, and then how are we giving it a grid setting?
So that's in the layout options.
So then we're just calling it a grid?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Okay, and then we're saying.
So hit done first, because right now you still, when the grid shows up red, it's asking you how many rows, how many columns do you want?
Gotcha. Okay. And so then here we're adding another div block.
There you go. Yep.
Box. Okay.
Yep. I mean, you can give it a flex box if you want to. You also don't have to. That's just to change the alignment inside. Putting the div in there is what gave you the capability to solve the previous problem.
Okay, so because I want to add both a header and paragraph text in this same one.
Yep.
So can I now?
So you can drag your, or I guess I shouldn't tell you. I was going to tell you, but you'll figure it out. Yeah.
No, and so can I, in this div, can I obviously need to assign this to be a flex box, and then I can drag, now that I've assigned this to be a flex box.
So you do not have to assign it to a flex box. That is a style choice. It being a div allows items inside of it. So you don't have to, you can give it a flex box, but you do not have to. That's just what I did for a design choice.
Okay. All right. So then I can put a heading inside it and say, we're going to just make this a heading 2. And then
you got a bunch of quotes and copy ready for this project, I'm hoping.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay, good.
And then we're putting in some paragraph text. And then
we'll need to remember to copy this copy for when we start the actual project, when we clone the thing, so you don't lose your glorious copy.
Right, exactly. All right, now what I do want to make sure is that, so I would like this copy to be underneath the heading. And I don't necessarily remember how to do that yet, so I need to think that through. Because I thought this would end up just being the full length of the
So it
um
would have. I think this came from an issue of making your grid or your div a flex box.
mm, interesting. So if I take this and just oh,
So not a grid. Yeah, just go back to your regular one.
and then um
So back in layout where you just clicked grid, you just want to go back to the standard box underneath flex box.
this
There you go.
there we go. Okay. Okay. And then over here we want an image.
And again, I would just go ahead and add just so we're kind of getting good choices. Always add a div. Always
Yeah.
put something inside of a div. So go for a div and then an image.
Okay. That's right. Always a div. And then image inside, image, choose image. Got this one. No, we're going to go with this one. Clearly, that's far more authentic. We're going to shrink it up just a little bit, make it a little more mysterious.
It's pretty hard to see.
That's part of the thing. Nessie sometimes
Okay.
is a little hard to spot. You got to know what you're looking for.
So you could delete one of your rows. So let's go back to your grid and then go over to the settings. So that little the red button, sorry, that's on the canvas, click that. And then you can delete one of the rows. So you just delete in the right side. If you go on the right side of where it says row auto, there's a little delete button that will pop up on your row. Yep. So it's in the far
Um,
right. It's very tiny, the far
all
right
right.
of where you're hovering.
So I see some trash cans
Yep.
here.
So I'll
Is
remove
it
one of the rows. There
okay?
you go.
Done. All right. So now I do want to add some spacing above this div block 21. I would like to add some margin because that's clearly just a little close.
And you
Same
want to
with,
make sure what pixel value or what spacing value
oh,
you're using.
so that was not rem at all. So I'm going to click on that. So that's probably going to be, I'm going to go with 4 rem. And we hit enter.
So as we're designing, we'll want to think of non-destructive ways of adding margins. So you might come up with a good, like let's say you had 10 or 20 margins, so that's in the center of the screen on the desktop, which will look really good while we're building the desktop. The issue might arise later down the road when you go to tablet or landscape. It's still going to have that margin, and that margin might be more than the whole screen length
Mm.
of the item. So if you now scroll through your different things, and you can use the 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll notice as we get there, the spacing percentage-wise becomes bigger. So we'll just want to keep that in mind. The one corrective to this, so that you can still do this, is that one of the fin suites that responsive sizing, where you lower the value of a rem, that will help um, balance that much of the spacing. Otherwise, if you do need that spacing, you'll have to go into tablet and maybe you'll go, what do you have, 4 rems? So maybe here
Yeah.
you'll just have to click 2 rem. And so you can just build it for the desktop, but just remember that it might create more projects as you go down the road. So that's just one way to think of is there a way I can get this spacing? Maybe I want to use a percentage. Maybe I want to use something else. We don't really want to use
So,
percentages because we do want to stay in the rem. So this is the best way to do it. And when we get into the fin suite stuff, you'll notice that they'll have a class called padding, and it'll be 4 rem, 3 rem, 2 rem, 1 rem. So they'll automatically do that.
yeah.
But for understanding how you would do that without the fin suite is just really important. So their two integrations solve that, but it's just something to pay attention to if you weren't using their spacing method.
Okay. All right.
So is there anything else you want to play around with?
All right. This is good. The one thing I noticed, obviously, that I haven't been doing is everything from below the nav bar is not inside my page wrapper, right? Or a lot of this stuff isn't really
Well, if you click your
cleanly.
little, so up where you see the word navigator, all the way at the very
Um,
top, if you go
okay.
right, there's two icons. If you click that one,
Yeah.
it shrinks it all, so shrink it, and
Yeah.
now you can open it one at a time.
Yeah.
So now you can see, oh wait, maybe I should drag the div block 21 into the page wrapper. You just have to drag one item. There you go. So now it's all in there.
Okay. Oh, nice. All right. So then also that would say that my naming convention is kind of poor if I have div block, div block, div block 21. I haven't really named things at all.
And that's something we'll get the hang of once we dive into the FinSuite stuff. Right now, we just kind of want you to play around. So that way, when we're talking about
Yeah.
spacing and flexbox and grid, you've kind of already played with those. So you've got a little more of a feel of what you're doing.
Well, it is fun to get my hands on the mouse and kind of play around with stuff. I think just playing around with moving some stuff around here functionally in the navigator. This is actually kind of interesting too. The control of moving it in here, how it moves it around on the site. It's kind of interesting.
One fun thing that we haven't really even touched on, it could be kind of cute just for this demo thing, to add we can do this in the actual site too, just underneath the grid, add a little form that says, if you've seen Nessie, let us know. So we
Oh,
could,
yeah, that's a good little challenge. I like it. All right. Okay. So we're gonna add a. All right. So let's add a div, and then let's add a. Um, so technically this would be the div called section, right? So
so you would name, so if we were actually naming this correctly, you can go over to the style panel and type it.
yeah.
So it would be section dash Nessie form or contact form. So section dash contact form.
All right. So then we would add another div just for, would this just be then for the actual form?
So I would probably call that, I would name that one the form wrapper. So form dash wrapper. And then you can go into your elements panel since that would probably be the best way to find what you're looking for in terms of form. Now, if you scroll down, remember there's a whole section for the form.
Yeah,
So
this form.
the form block is the base to a form. All other elements need to be inside the form block. So you'll always start with the form block. And so those are some other settings we can worry about later. So right now you can exit out of that. And so what do we want the form to look like? So we probably want to add in a heading or something so we can tell them why they should submit the form.
Yeah. So then we can add a heading. This is so we want the heading to go up here. This is going to be submit your Nessie sighting. And then we're going to take that down from let's see. I want to change that from heading 1 to something else.
So there's two ways to do it. You can, number one, click that little settings toggle icon right there.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Or next to your styles panel, you can click the settings wheel. You'll just have to have the element selected.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, yep, right there. Okay, very nice. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to want some extra fields in this form. So we would want,
Text block, or text area, I should say, too, at some point to say describe your citing.
name checkbox. Let's see, we want a checkbox, and then
If you click enter on that and then go over to the settings menu, you'll have the options of what it should say when you have that checkbox selected.
required. Let's see.
So you have to click the checkbox. It didn't take what you're trying to type in it. So click the checkbox. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't hit enter on it for some reason.
Try typing it now.
No, see, it took the text over here.
That's not quite.
I just took the name, but then I didn't put it in the
Go to
label.
the. So go up on your right now in your checkbox label. Go up to checkbox field. If you look at your very bottom glossary, you need to go up one. Glossary on the very bottom of your page. Okay.
Name.
Oh, so that's just the field setting. So you should be able to double click on the word checkbox and type in the actual word. So that's just a placeholder. So that way, if somebody clicked it, you'd know what it is.
I got it. Okay.
So the name would show when somebody submitted the form what they selected. Yep.
Okay. Then all right, so then we want another input for time and date of citing.
So when you're naming this, that's just what will show up in the email. That will not actually change anything on that. So you could either put it in the placeholder text, or you would want to create a new field label. So copy, like you could click the email address, click the email address, the actual word, sorry, and then hit Command C, Command V. No, sorry, no, just the whole element. Sorry. Click the email. Click the word email address.
Um.
And then Command C and Command V. There you go. So now you can drag that above the other field. Yep. And so now you could type in, time and date of citing. And your placeholder field, you might add in like, I don't even know where you'd cite Nessie, Northern Ireland, and then a date format that you might want.
We could even, then we can just even leave that blank.
Sure.
Actually.
Which is the one beneath it, because that's the placeholder. Yep, there you go.
We want that. We don't want that. All right, so one of the things just interesting, so there's not much margin on the left as I'm working on this. Is there a way to increase this? Because this is really tight when this blue line shows up.
Yeah, so what I would probably do is take the whole div block you created, the form wrapper or the section, actually probably the form wrapper, and I would shrink the max width and center it. So it's in the center of the website and maybe 50% of the width.
All right, so how do I do that?
So we want to start in the style panel.
Okay.
And so you can either use the size, the max width.
Is that up here in the center in the canvas setting, or is
Nope,
that
it's in
in
the style panel under size.
size? Oh, okay, up here. All right, max width. So that would be like
Probably 75%.
1280. So it's percentage. Okay.
Yeah, you could go for a percentage. And then you'll want to center it, which is one little toggle if you can remember that hack. Up near your spacing area.
Is that the margin auto?
You could, but there's also that little toggle right up by spacing.
Oh, this one here, this button.
There you go.
There we go. That's
So,
much better.
so one way to be compliant with keeping rems is you could give it on the size thing, you could give it a width right now in rems. So you could say it's going to be 60 rems up to 75%. And that way, as you get onto smaller screens, like you're still respecting rems, but you'll just, it won't ruin on smaller screens. So you could type in 60 rem right here if you wanted. Boom. And then if you scroll down to the other, see how it looks on like tablet and other things. It nicely shrinks down to that 75%.
All right.
So you'll notice right now, if you go down a couple layers, you'll notice everything is having issues being off the screen. So when we start working on with the FinSuite stuff, the page wrapper, if you hypothetically go to the page wrapper, we'll click on the page wrapper, and we will give it an inside padding of 2 rem or 1 rem each side, left and right. And you'll now notice it pulls everything off the screen. So now if you go down to lower tablet mode and stuff, you'll notice everything is off the edges.
Oh, yeah, it's much nicer.
And that was just one, that's the beauty of having that global pad, that the page wrapper, and then just
Right.
having, you can put it in one place. And so as you're building a website, it is really nice to just get all the content, the sections in there. And when we get to the FinSuite stuff, our goal is going to be to almost entirely build out the framework of the website before we use any custom classes. So before we start applying random styles, we're going to only try to use the global classes that already exist. And then as we build up the whole framework, we'll go in and be like, all right, let's add the final touches.
That's really strategic.
Yeah, there's a lot of good strategies in there, but it's definitely will save you time down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it looks very basic. It looks like some of the old websites we built 10,
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
years ago or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where
Very
you're in the back
HTML.
end and actually that was really hard. You didn't have any visual canvases. You had to go make all your changes, publish it, and go check it and stuff.
I remember building in Dreamweaver in the early 2000s, and this is kind of this was fancy stuff, putting out this.
Yeah. I mean, this would be as good as you get for a website 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe some
Oh,
red and some blue and some crazy colors and some other stuff.
we were
But
proud
yeah, I
of
mean,
this.
really, you covered a lot. And I think the biggest benefit of doing this is you got your hands on it before we started following their guide. And I think as we're learning the guide, you'll have seen now that you had to go space stuff, you know, to add margin, how much simpler it'll be once you pick up their system.
All right.
So,
Well, good.
all right, well, that's what we'll tackle in the next video. So I think we'll end it here.
All right. Thank you much.
Good job. And we got a start of our website.